Joining us to discuss this case, former prosecutor Daniel Hochheiser. Daniel, we welcome you into America's Forum.
Good morning, J.D. Good morning, Olga.
And Daniel, as you join us from Newsmax, New York, it is worth noting that Mr. Matthews' name has come up in re-examinations of about 10 rape, murder, and disappearance cases across Virginia in the last dozen years. As a former prosecutor, do you think these cases are a pattern that could be used against him in the Graham case?
Well, I certainly think the first step in the investigation is going to be a forensic comparison between the Hannah Graham situation and the Morgan Harrington situation. These were two different female college students' bodies that were discovered about 5 miles apart in an area where Jesse Matthew grew up. So I think the first step in making a case is to compare those two discoveries and see if you can link Jesse Matthew to both, and then you start the next phase of the investigation, which to see if there are any signatures in the ways these homicides were committed.
Now, sir, let me ask you something. Matthews could also be linked to the disappearance of 3 other women. Do you think his arrest will help solve other cases as well? And what needs to be done to maybe connect him to these other cases?
Well, they need to do a full forensic DNA, serological, hair, fiber, fingerprint review of all these investigations to see if his DNA, which is in their database now since he's been arrested, can be linked to these other cases. So far as I know, at this point, the connections are somewhat soft. As you notice, Mr. Matthew is not charged yet with murder in the Hannah Graham case. It doesn't appear that the authorities have the evidence to charge him with that crime yet. He's only charged with an abduction with intent to defile.
Now, let me ask you a procedural question that just comes to mind. Someone is in prison. Do they have to submit to any of these DNA tests, or can the jailer go through surreptitious means to get DNA from a variety of different methods without specifically asking the accused to submit to tests?
Well, certainly first of all, yes, they can get his DNA. If not voluntarily, they can get it with a court order. The Supreme Court of the United States is clear that DNA swabs or fingerprint evidence is not what the law calls testimonial. So you can be compelled to provide a sample of your DNA or other bodily signatures, so to speak. So that can be done. Whether the authorities can do it surreptitiously, I'm not a Virginia or a Texas lawyer, so you'd have to look at the laws in those states. But my guess is they wouldn't bother with that. They would just get a court order.
And sir, how do you think he fell under the radar for so long?
I don't know. I don't know how the investigation had been conducted at the outset. I know the Hannah Graham investigation is relatively young. It's only from, I believe, September. The Morgan Harrington investigation, I know, began in 2009. I don't know how this particular suspect, who apparently was on video as the last person seen with Hannah Graham, eluded authorities for all these years.
Well, we look back at this, and it's always said that hindsight is 20/20. Is it, and as a prosecutor dealing and working closely with law enforcement, the blame game for law enforcement, a failure to, quote, connect the dots, is this something that would be readily seen, this pattern with someone like Jesse Matthew?
Well, I don't think anybody should be quick to criticize the authorities. The authorities do their investigation. They play the cards they're dealt, so to speak. And you have to remember, the suspect doesn't want to be found. So generally, suspects are trying to do whatever they can to cover their tracks to make it difficult for the authorities to solve a case. So cases take a long time. Some cases take decades. So, the authorities may have done everything exactly right. So I think we should reserve our criticism until we know all the facts.
And Daniel, I was actually showing something to JD a few seconds ago. We were both reading a statement from the USA Today, and I want to read it to you because it's quite chilling, and I'm going to quote, "The sporadic attacks match the profile of someone who takes long cooling off periods between assaults." Quite frightening.
Indeed, a lot of serial killers that we're familiar with over the years are killers that kill in similar ways regularly over a relatively short period of time. Here you have a 2009 Morgan Harrington body that's discovered, and then you have a 2014 Hannah Graham discovery. You have a 5-year period in between, and we don't know if there are other bodies in between those killings. So it is scary, and the public should rest assured that they have this a suspect locked up. He's innocent till proven guilty, but it seems to be that they are focusing on him.
Daniel Hochheiser, with your experience as a prosecutor and now as a criminal defense lawyer, we thank you for your insights and your advice not to assume too much, but we will continue to monitor this, and we will have you back real soon to visit with us again. So you heard from Counselor Hochheiser. Now, what's your take? Why don't you tweet me your comments at Newsmax TV, # America's Forum. There's also newsmaxtv.com/comment. And don't forget Facebook. We're coming back following this Newsmax Now update.